Like, the universe is using shame as a memo system. I'm like, oh, you're supposed to write a new record. Oh, that's supposed to be this, or you're supposed to go do this. There's an action, but shame hides the action from us. So most people, when they feel shame, they just run. So what you're supposed to do is actually go into shame, make love to shame, undress it, make it your lover, take all its power away, make it your bitch. And then it's like, by the way, here's the ingredients for your new record.
I'm Jeff Scult. I have been on a healing and revealing journey, following my thread to my inner gold. My great honor in life is to sit with the golden ones and discover what they've released in terms of their past stuck stories, what they've revealed in terms of who they are anew, and within that, how we can each celebrate the art of living life golden. Welcome to Drops of Gold.
Hey there, golden ones. This episode of Drops of Gold is powered by One Golden Thread, the regenerative nature fashion brand that I created from my mind's eye that we can all live in regenerosity. Enjoy the program, and we've got a special code for you later on to share. You are golden. We are all connected, better together as one golden thread.
Okay, friends, on this episode of Drops of Gold, we are privileged to sit with my dear soul sister, Biet Simkin. Biet is a best-selling author of Don't Just Sit There. She is a song ceremonialist. She is a big stage speaker, a breath worker from the stars for the stars. She is a person who is teaching us how to ground a new version of enlightenment that is accessible. You will definitely be leaving this episode with something new for you to take with you. Welcome to this episode of Drops of Gold, Biet Simkin. We have arrived. 7 years in the making since us sitting down with my iPhone
7 years.
And having a moment with one of the OGs of me and my personal journey, Biet Simkin.
Yay.
I am so honored and excited to have you on Drops of Gold.
Same. We're together again. I still remember that moment on my couch 7 years ago. It's like,
Cozy times in Brooklyn.
yeah, Brooklyn.
Yeah. Well, we are going to get so into all of it, and it's just such an honor maybe to start where we are and to, after you just drove up here from Laguna to the studio in Venice, to drop us all in to a brief meditation. I would love to, I'd love to receive, and I'd love to invite our listeners just to receive the initial blessing before we get into any of the thought aspects around all the blessings that you're bringing into the world.
Oh, let's do it.
Giddy up.
All right. Let's do eyes open or closed, whatever you feel. Remembering that there's no real difference. The inner world and the outer world are both equally elusive. Let us pray. And prayer is a request that the holy inside of us may direct our thinking and our actions and speak through us. Deep inhale through the nose and release. And another deep inhale through the nose and release. This breathing may seem insignificant, but anything that can give us a pause of respite away from our personality self is a treasure. As you sit with us today, take a moment to remember a moment in your life when you remembered who you were actually. And it may have been really manic, like you saw it for a glimpse and then it left you. Or maybe it was a sweet stasis that stayed with you for a period of time and then left, as it will. But just go back to that moment for a second. And I invite you to, in listening to this episode, try to bring yourself back. Not just like, oh, that's some nice nostalgia. I really was present then. But asking in prayer, how can I be that today? 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, any amount of time you'll give me, I'll take it. Just let me be me. Deep breath in. And release. Deep breath in and hold. And release. And for a moment, just visualize what you would do with your life. What would be created if you actually let yourself live in that state, visiting it every day, not on accident, but like your life depended on it. What would you create? Who would you have dinner with? What would you do? Let this episode be the beginning of the most insane love affair you've ever had. And let the beloved be you. Deep inhale. And release. Hands on the heart. And giving yourself a hug to welcome yourself back. Admitting that you just always leave yourself. But that's okay. You can come back. Feel safe to return into your body. And then shake out for any extra relaxation.
Why is it so important to actually let that throat chakra go at the end? Because I love that. And it's somebody who was so blocked in expression for so long, that's very resonant for me. It's not just an exhale of letting the breath go softly, but it's actually like that lion's breath. And what is that? Because it's so potent to let it go.
We're killers, It's the moment you don't realize, like I'm a really gentle person filled with anxiety and fear. Something like if you married like Woody Allen and some bunny somewhere, that's probably me. But I've been like held up at gunpoint, almost raped. I've been attacked by a mugger. And every fucking time I took those bitches down. And so what that tells me is like, we're not really who we pretend to be moment to moment. And so when we can get like, maybe, we could fucking remember who we actually are. Am I allowed to curse?
Yes, fuck yes.
Okay.
And you famously said, I don't know to me or to the world, but you famously said like, the arc of our journey is to be less full of shit than we were before.
Yeah.
And I love the way that you speak about you use everything gets to be a fulcrum and a catalyst. Being mugged at gunpoint. For those who know your journey and just for those that don't, the extraordinary nature of your transformation and your heroines, and I mean that as a double entendre in terms of heroes and heroines' journey from addiction to losing your child to the other, and to use it all and see it all as this aspect of a catalyst. And I'd love just to start there, because you were already into it, and to talk about the journey that's led you to being such a blessing in your own life for yourself, and inspiring others to access their inner gold. And that's really what this is all about. So let's go there, and maybe tell us a little bit about your, I'm much less interested in where people were born and versus where they are formed. And really what that, you're speaking to is like all these aspects have formed you and have steeled you in your chrysalis to ignite you forward, as to, the expression of yourself butterfly. So let's go back and tell us a story. And maybe we even start with your shaman father, which is just such a extraordinary man. It's been a blessing to hear about him and what have you, and your childhood and where you were formed.
I love my dad. I mean, I've been telling this story for so long. And there's a point in, I think, for anyone who's listening who hasn't been able to quite tell their story. I just want to say, like, the first step is tell your story. Like, tell it like it matters, like you actually matter. And then after a while, I'm sure you can relate, you tell your story, and then you hear other people tell their story, and everyone tells their fucking story, and you just feel like, God, we're a bunch of fucking sentimental soppy mops, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Is this edited later? Like I can pause or anything? Yeah. Is it, if a plane is coming, does it matter or no?
No, it's just,
really.
it's all part of it, including, like we can get messy and I mean, it's good, but sure, we can edit some things out, including, like, I love the aspect of the fact that you want to hear my story, read the book. Let's talk about, let's talk about, what it really matters, because, I agree with you, I mean, look, Landmark for me was like, for the most part, kind of okay, I get it, a little bit of an eye roll, but there was one thing within it that was so fucking powerful.
Yeah.
And it was this notion, like, we are storytellers and we are meaning-making machines. Something happened, is this circle over here, we tell a story around it, we attach meaning, and then, as my genius of a cousin, Debbie Horwich, who understands the neurolinguistic psychosomatics that we play in our brain, we will replay that story as if something, for instance, what my mom told me when she didn't want a hug from me because she didn't want to receive a hug from me, and I told myself I wasn't lovable for, I don't know how
yeah, we used like 30 years before we
So I'm down with, like, what's the, what is the, that is his story. Yeah. And now what is the, what's most important? Because, I love, the thing I most love about you is, you're a delicious shit stirrer. You invite us into getting real and grounded and being earth connected, and yet being a sentient alien being like you are. You also invite us into concepts and constructs that really invite us into obliterating the things that actually hold us back. Yeah. So we can take this any which way it feels good to take it, and then we'll just follow the thread.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not leaving out the part that I got fucked by life. I want to be clear that I got the number, but I just, like, I'm so grateful that I know what nothing is. I know what nothing is. And I think I'm an addict, and so, like, as an addict, it can be really easy to fall in love with nothing, and it's seductive. I think most people that start with nothing the way that I did, and then have it ripped to shreds the way I did, and then you can really get into that, and like I've been recently feeling into like for me, there's something very sexy about something that's impossible. Like I have a song on one of my records called Impossible Love. And it's just this idea of like, I was watching a film recently. It's one of the best films I've ever seen. It's called Waking the Dead. And it was this film about, I don't want to ruin it for anyone who's going to watch it, including you, in case you haven't seen it. But like, it's just this impossible relationship. And these two people who are like the hottest people on earth are like, falling in love, having sex. It's so sexy, but it's impossible. It's just impossible. And I'm watching this film like, it's like a true porno for me, because I was just like, oh man, God, I love impossible. You know what I mean? And so as an addict, the fact that I created a life that is all possible, like I have living children who I just delight with love every day and who I show up for. I have a husband who I've been with monogamously for 14 years and we still like fuck like it's day one, And I created a career. I make fuck tons of money. I have incredible friends. I travel all over the world. That's creation. And I think for a person like me who wants to burn it all to the ground and be in an impossible love, I don't know if you can relate, but I know someone is listening to this and at least spent their entire 20s just dating people just because it was impossible. Do you know what I mean? Like I would like find the one person at the party. I was like, this will definitely not work. And I'm going to make this guy my fucking dude, And just torturing each other. And so hot. It's so hot because it's like the most mysterious thing ever. It's like, will they leave? Will they stay? No, they won't stay. They can't stay. They can't even like get a hard on because it's so confusing right now. And like for me, it's like, yes, give it to me. Like the more fucking confusing, the more impossible, like give it to me. And I just think we got to look at ourselves. We got to see, where are we addicted to the impossible? Where are we addicted to loss? Where are we addicted to the gamble? And you know what I mean? I have a friend who was a gambling addict. He said the best thing for him as a gambling addict was the moment when he lost everything. He would go to Vegas and just fucking lose it all. And he was like emptied out. He felt like he was just going to come right there because it was gone, And I think it's fucking terrific when people make shit and do things that are constructive and show up for life and are like kind and nice. I think that's a fucking mystery and an anomaly.
Man, I love that. I love that. It reminds me of the Rudyard Kipling poem about, send all your, put all on a pitch and a toss and treat your wins and losses, as imposters just the same. I mean, there's something within that that's so beautiful as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I love the notion around, I mean, even, you and I love to take apart words, even this notion around the impossible. Is it impossible or is it actually impossible? Like we get to see everything that's possible. I'd like to actually.
I'm possible, or I'm possible.
I am possible.
Or impossible spells I'm possible.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. All right, we just cracked the code of the universe. So we're completely just.
And the next film will be.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah. We talk about this journey that we're all on as these light beings, and people talk about enlightenment. I'd love to have you unpack that.
Yeah.
Because I love the fact that this is part of your journey, which is making it practical and accessible, and also maybe unpacking, like, is that actually the North Star?
Oh yeah, it's the North Star. I call total bullshit, and I'm very grateful that God, or what I call God, and I think you know me well enough to know that I'm not talking about a bearded sexist guy who is anti-gay or something like that. We're not talking about that God.
Yes.
Okay. Just for anyone who's listening, that's not the God I'm talking about. But I like to call it God because I believe, I named my kid Sunday, like my new baby. She's 1. I named her Sunday because I thought that's like naming your kid Church, Anyway, I call bullshit. I think enlightenment, I spent my whole life being told enlightenment was this moment where you have this white light experience and you run through the forest with your tits in your hands and you're like, I'm better than everyone else, finally. I'm free. I'm free from desire. I'm free from wants. I'm free from the pain of my social anxiety. I no longer have rejection. I no longer feel pain. I'm not afraid of death anymore. I'm free from the pain of death. I only love. I just love everyone. And I think everyone's great. And I have no discernment or selection. I'm just free, right? That's what we were told. And, I'm into Buddhism and Hinduism. I've read like every text, and not like, I read every text. And as I read them, I touched myself and I lit candles and I lit the Christmas lights and I fell in love and I fucked and I did whatever you could do to find this state. Because I was told when I got there, I'd be free, right? I mean, that was the fucking story I was told. So anyway, I'm on my journey and I'm like, here I go. I'm going to become better than everyone else. Everyone will turn to me. I'll be on a podium. They can say, blah, 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 Biet. How do we do this? And I will bestow upon them my wisdom. And then I'll go home and I'll be free from I will never bicker with my husband. I'll never have a bad day. I'll never have a rash. I'm just fucking perfect, right? And what happened along the way is I found enlightenment. And, you found it too. So you know what I'm talking about. And so I found it and I was like, oh God, I found it. And it was so amazing. And finally I thought I'd be free. I'm like, this is it. I'm finally going to get to this point where I'll be better than everyone and free from all my troubles. And it would last, I'm pretty good at enlightenment, so sometimes it lasted a whole week, That's fucking cool. And at the end of that week, guess what? I'm an asshole. I'm a self-absorbed, jealous, social climbing, fucking, you name it, I have it. I'm flawed. And so after one white light experience after another, I just had to kind of question, maybe something's wrong with this script, And so my friend wrote this book. He interviewed all these brilliant people. And he wrote a book called Radical Brilliance. And in it, he talked about what's the formula for being brilliant. And he drew this map to describe what brilliance was. And I took this map and I just meditated on it for years. I was just yeah, that map. And one day it dawned on me. I was like, oh, that map is my definition of enlightenment. So I've redefined enlightenment. And I'm working on my next book, which will be about this redefinition. But I'm happy to share it with you here today.
Oh, let's not tease. Let's go.
Yeah. So, okay. So what a clock looks like. And so let's say 12 o'clock is enlightenment. It looks like this thing. It's a circle, right?
Shout out to Highway Kozo.
Yeah.
Creating the monolith.
Namaste. So 12 o'clock is enlightenment. It's that moment when you're I remember who I am. I remember the meaning of life. I know why I went through all the pain I went through. I remember why I chose my parents. I remember why death happens. I remember that death is part of this whole thing. I'm free, right? And some people have that on ayahuasca. Some people have it on mushrooms. Some people like me have it for 15 years, completely stark fucking raving sober, right? You can have it any which way, but the point is that you have it. And it's interesting, I work with a lot of private clients who will do things like ayahuasca or whatever, and they come back to me, and every time it's the same. They remember 12 o'clock. And I'm just like, cool, 12 o'clock. We remember 12 o'clock. Good for you. You remembered, right? And I was like, how are we going to make this a thing, right? So this is where the rest of the wheel comes in. So 12 o'clock moves to 3 o'clock, and 3 o'clock is creative flow. It's where you're tasked to take the juicy orgasmic energy that you got at 12 o'clock, which, by the way, the books will tell you get to stay in forever once you're like the Buddha, which I have finally verified is just not fucking true. And so you go to 3 o'clock, and I'm just so glad I get to debunk this myth, because I'm so tired of books telling me I'm not good enough. And that I somehow am failing because I have 3 more fucking sections of my wheel to move through, right? So 3 o'clock, creative flow. Do I write a book? Do I open up a beautiful space? Do I start a podcast? Do I make a clothing line? Do I fall in love? Do I get married? Do I write a novel? Do I write a poem? Do I jump off a cliff like Thelma and Louise? Like, what am I doing, right? And you're tasked to do that at 3 o'clock. And 3 o'clock moves into 6 o'clock. And 6 o'clock is really where the pedal to the metal comes in, because I feel like 6 o'clock is really what we've been told is not enlightenment, and we'll call that achievement. And achievement is like everything you don't want to do. Marketing events, cold calls, spreadsheets, understanding your numbers, understanding ground, like figuring out what's happening, reaching out to people, doing things that help to get 3 o'clock out into the world. And then I asked myself, like, as I was figuring this out for myself, I'm like, do you think Rumi didn't do 6 o'clock? Do you think Shakespeare skipped 6 o'clock? Because those were my heroes. I'm like, I want to be like Rumi, right? Do you think Rumi just wrote poems and drank wine like he talked about in the poems? Or do you think he did 6 o'clock where he went to task to share that shit with the world? Because I'm guessing he did 6 o'clock because you and me have read Rumi. So if you want to sit in your fucking apartment in Brooklyn and be broke and write poems no one will ever read, stay at 12 o'clock or pretend to. But you've got some shit to do, right? So 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock comes. And 9 o'clock is called humility. And that's when you learn that you're a worthless piece of crap and that everything you try will fail. Every email gets rejected. Every podcast doesn't want you. Every person you meet where you think it's going to be the next thing that leads you to that big thing fails. And you feel like crap, and you have a breakup, your house burns down, you lose some money, you feel like shit, you still have financial fear, you still have social anxiety, you still have this, you still have that, right? 9 o'clock. And so to me, once I learned that 9 o'clock was a part of enlightenment, what do I do? What do you do at 9 o'clock? I used to be like, run for the hills. It's 9 o'clock. I can't be here because that means I'm not enlightened. And to be Biet Simkin, the great guru, I must be enlightened. But what if 9 o'clock is part of it? What if me feeling like a total worthless piece of crap is part of my enlightenment? And what if actually the fact that I get to interact and interface with 9 o'clock all the time as a person who's going for it at life means I'm more connected to my fellow man? Because I'm broken just like everyone else, and I'm scared just like everyone else, and I'm real, and I want things, and I'm afraid to want them publicly. And then just like putting that all out there and getting on my knees and saying, God fucking help me to remember who I am. And then 12 o'clock. And I remember who I am. But here's the thing. This wheel happens every day. It's not like, oh, I found enlightenment and now I'm a New York Times bestseller and I'm just better than you. Bring me my filet mignon now. That's the lie. I mean, I'll totally eat some filet mignon as long as I can admit that I'm going through all fucking parts of that cycle on a daily basis.
Ye of women that bend spoons and bends time, is it linear, or is it literally just like, an illustration, and yet it all happens in the same nanosecond, if you will?
I don't know. I mean, test it out. See what you find. For me, I find that it can be very much like a wheel like that, because there is like one. But eventually, if you're doing it, you're kind of at all the clocks at the same time.
What I do love about it is the construct is, it's a powerful thing to think that whatever you're doing, whatever you're thinking about, whatever's choking you back, and I can raise my hand and speak for somebody who for 51 years rear naked choke, UFC choked himself out from doing anything in expression. That notion around taking the first step, and it's like the gravitas, the gravity of just leaning into 3, leaning into 3 o'clock, and that's your first expression, the creative expression. Don't think about how you're going to do it. Don't necessarily, and then letting go to realize you're doing it for yourself, and failure is not only an option, it's a blessing. It's like, it's this notion. I loved when Peter Crone came on, he talked about, this is somebody who has, I mean, he's guided some of the most powerful athletes and celebrities who, we're all human. We have the human condition chokes us back. And what he asks them to do is to visualize, like a home run hitter, to say, visualize, okay, I'm going to put you through an exercise. You've hit your last home run. You'll never hit another home run. That's it. Does that make you less lovable? Does that make you, and it's a powerful thing to say, like, oh, what's the worst that can happen? As Victory likes to say, what's the best that can happen? It's like, because you've already let go of the construct of that thing that holds us back. So I love the fact that you're leaning into, on this beautiful wheel of creation, you're leaning into your creative expression. Then we get to ground it in terms of how we do it. And then we realize, like, the absolute worst thing that could happen is still a blessing because you took that step in the first place.
Yeah, it is a blessing. And it's also, what if you and I were speaking about preferential and preferences. Yeah. And I feel like selectivity, like, I don't think that's a word. I like make up words. I'm Russian. Anyway, the thing is my whole life I had a preference towards 12 o'clock. And that really changed my life when I was just as into 9 o'clock as I was into 12, because I no longer saw them as different or separate. And to me, to take my body into my hands and to dance around like a striptease and lean into how horrifyingly ashamed I am of whatever it is.
Yeah.
It is the best. It's the best because you take the power right out of it. This thing that used to cripple you or me or anyone is now food. Like, I'm like, bring it on. I'm going to eat it.
Let's talk about this. Let's dive into this idea around preference, because this was something that is certainly new for me on my journey. And I had a blessing. Thank you. Shout out to Zach Bell. Put together a small group that we had an opportunity to go up and sit with Michael Singer, author of Untethered Soul, Surrender Experiment. And he just was this rushing river of just being in a circle and just sharing in things that I hadn't read in this book. So and one of the things that came through so powerfully for me was this notion of letting go of preference. Now, where I've been on my journey is this notion around, like, okay, is life happening to you or is it happening for you? And it's like, okay, we can treat those imposters just the same. It's like, don't be grateful. Be grateful for not just the shiny bits, but for every bit. That's beautiful. I get that. He was going into this notion around, actually let go of preference. And that was such a powerful thought, which is like, I'm sure we like for things to go well in our life. We want things to be happy versus sad, but it's a powerful thing to say, like, not just that you will treat them all as a catalyst for consciousness. But what he was saying was that actually, if you let go of preference, is so powerful. And so, how do we do that? How do we let go of preference while also still wanting to live a life where we're not walking down the street and being rat fucked? We're not doing this, and you walk in that golden light. How the fuck do we do that? Letting go of preference.
I mean, again, it comes down to there's an inner and outer world to everything, right? So this is where, again, calling back to calling bullshit, and I'm not calling bullshit on Singer specifically. I'm just talking about the idea that I can't want to win an Oscar in this lifetime. Like, I was talking to someone recently, it was like a year ago or something, and they were acting. And we were just talking about their acting career. And this person, she said to me, I don't want like an Oscar or anything.
Which meant she wanted the Oscar.
Yeah, I was like, so you want an Oscar? Like, and I said to her, because I'm me, I said, why don't you just admit that you want an Oscar? And she said, oh no, I don't. I just am doing it just for the craft alone. And I was like, I'm so fucking tired of this. I'm so tired of it. I'm just tired of it. And the truth is that I think it's more ballsy to admit you want an Oscar, because the only reason you're not even saying it is because you're scared you won't fucking get one.
Yeah.
Like, just say it and then fail at least. Go to 9 o'clock. Go to 9 o'clock in your deathbed. Be like, I fucking failed. Ha. But at least I tried,
Yeah.
At least I wasn't like hiding out and fucking faux 12 o'clock. How many people do you know that stare at you like they just fucking licked a toad's venom and are like, I no longer want anything. You know, I'm just like, what?
You know what's God? You know what's really interesting? Like I'm allowing myself to challenge myself in this moment. Like this podcast, Drops of Gold. Do I feel like it will be only successful and achievement oriented and soul feeling for me if I have 1 million followers or whatever the fuck and voted whatever the fuck. I can genuinely say that if I died tomorrow, this was the thing that I would feel like I'm expressed and I'm in peace, because this was the original vision of One Golden Thread. You know this. This was all about like sharing wisdom and share the stories that inspire us forward. And this is my 8-year-old self. Like I was freaking my parents' friends out, asking follow-up questions, and then inviting them into like, allowing them to see their inner goal. And then they walk to my parents like, "What is going on?" Like I'm crying, and like your son saw me, like in a way. So I don't know. Like, do I will say that, yeah, I'm deeply touched that when I see the reviews that are coming in and I'm reading them, and it's like, oh no, people are actually genuinely being touched. And I know this is dope because I get to sit with the dopest human beings I know. Yeah. And yeah, it inspires the hell out of me. And yet, how do we define what success looks like? Like I genuinely believe, because otherwise we're just chasing our tail if we're defining it based upon some Western construct.
I think it's both and though.
Sure.
That's the problem. Yeah. I think that we want the pain to go away, you know? So it's like, okay, on the one hand, the spiritual aspect is that if I died tomorrow, I will have been completely and utterly in devotional pursuit of my greatest self. And does my greatest self appear on a daily basis? Yeah. But is it the final totality of like my, what do you call it? Eulogy? Yeah. Probably not. No, because if you keep doing that day after day, it's like more beautiful things, right? Like I look back at my life and I'm like, oh, wow. And then I did that. And then I did that. And then I did that. But it's like, it was scary. And I felt like my hand wasn't in when you stick it in a socket, like every time I write a record, I feel like I'm like being electrocuted, you know? Yeah. But it's like, I don't want to deny the full experience, which is that there is an outer field and an inner field. And I do believe that there's something about, like, I don't know if the word's oracle or like, what do you call that? You know, when you see like a spirit animal. And I feel like sometimes we just know when we know, right? And you can't deny that that stuff matters or that it's real. Like if, let's say you're doing One Golden Thread, right? And you put out an episode, and it's just like this episode. You put it on Instagram or on YouTube, and all of a sudden, I'm just trying to think of like the coolest person on the planet that I can think of. It's hard. Russell Brand? He's among them. Russell's one of our people, for sure. Well, this would be very easy for Russell, but because he's one of my besties. But like, let's talk about something even more abstract, right? Like if a member of the Beatles was to just randomly turn to the YouTube channel at that moment and was like, Tiku Tiku 2, this is the best podcast episode I've ever fucking heard. And then Paul McCartney or whatever tweets out, if you haven't heard One Golden Thread, you need to. Like, how awesome would the rest of your evening be when that happened? By the way, the reason why this is so awesome in this moment is that when we first sat down 7 years ago, this was going to be called One Golden Thread. The name of the podcast is actually called Drops of Gold. Wait, why is that? What is? Because it's about the microdosed wisdoms along our path that is the golden thread that connects us all. So the clothing is the physical manifestation. The drops of gold is the wisdom that it invites us along the journey. Yeah. Wait, I'll say one more thing. Go. So, okay, we're talking about Paul McCartney tweeting about this podcast, right? Which, by the way, I'm calling in right now. Okay. But let's just say I'm a fan of Paul McCartney personally. Woo! But here's the thing I'm trying to say. Where does Paul McCartney find out about this podcast? Is it on YouTube?
It is.
Because no, it's not on YouTube. And that's where we go back to the wheel. Like, yes, 6 o'clock happens. And you could send this podcast to Paul McCartney. You could send it to Drew Barrymore. You could send it to whoever the fuck you want. You know who's going to hear this podcast?
Who?
Whoever's connected to you at 12 o'clock.
Mm.
And so, but does that mean that I should not do 6 o'clock? Should I not reach out to the 20 people that I'm interested in hearing the podcast? Should I just sit at home and fucking om kumbaya 24 hours a day because I really want Paul McCartney to hear this podcast? Or like manifest him on some vision board in my closet?
Can we substitute Mick Jagger for Paul McCartney?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I'm meeting him tomorrow.
All right. Great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
Like here?
no, at the Henson House,
Oh, amazing.
Jim Henson House.
What
up
a
in
beautiful-
Hollywood. Yeah, so there might be like a Muppet as they're practicing for their tour.
I love Mick Jagger doing this for us. Even better. Just, it's just like you to upgrade my visions.
Well,
Jeff Scult upgrading my vision
this
since
is a big-
2007.
I will say this is a monstrosity of a week of creative expression and explosion, and like this is my week is that we've signed a lease on this space on Abbot Kinney that's going to be an experiential tea lounge backed by an experiential retail for One Golden Thread, and meeting Mick Jagger tomorrow, who wants to put the tongue on the back of our zip hoodies. And,
What tongue? I'm just fucking kidding.
and I will say though that the rock star that I was most excited to meet this week and re-meet this week was you. Okay, friends, you know how they say kids say the funniest things? Well, I got to tell you, adults sometimes say the funniest things as well when they wear One Golden Thread. Some of my favorite quotes is somebody saying that they feel like they're making love to themselves without touching themselves. Real. Somebody else said they feel like they're wearing their wizard armor. Others have said they feel like they hit the gym without needing to hit the gym. Listen, whatever you say, whatever you feel, this is your journey. I'm just here to be an act of service and an offering to the world for you to go hug yourself. No, seriously, go hug yourself. One golden thread at a time. Special code at checkout, 22% off. Use code Drops of Gold. You are golden. We are all connected. Better together. Go hug yourself. Oh, God, I want to dive into shame.
Okay.
And then we'll go back to Impossible Love.
Cool. I hope I don't even know the words to my own song. I'll try.
So, one of my favorite things from our conversation 7 years ago that was such a beautiful construct was this notion of the exoskeleton and the shell.
Mm.
And, we can get so tethered and tied up and white knuckle clutched to our identity and who we are. And one of the things I love about you is you'll share a concept which can blow somebody's mind, and then I'll reach back out and you'll say, "What did I say?" No, I
have no
said it
idea.
once.
Yeah.
But I think you remember
Yeah.
this. So if it feels like you desire any further prompting of what I received, I can go in, or you can just go and talk to us about this notion of the shell, because it is such a beautiful, powerful, like one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard.
What did I say? I have no idea what I said.
Oh my God! All right, so here we go. So I am now like Biet. I'm going to parrot you.
You're Biet 7 years ago.
I'm Biet 7 years ago. Which by the way, I love the way you described yourself 7 years ago as the Black Oracle making cookies in the kitchen of the Matrix.
Wow.
Remember that? Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Amazing. Little old lady. Beautiful. So this notion of the shell was so touching and powerful as this notion around the identity, and that the shell is what protects us. It's what we identify with. It's what's shiny also to the world. And this notion that the shell, as we grow,
it's that perfect moment where it actually can fit beautifully if you visualize yourself as a crustacean. But then eventually you're going to press into the shell, and that shell is going to become uncomfortable because you are going through your own transformation. You are growing, you're expanding.
Yes.
And all of a sudden we can feel shameful because it's like it no longer fits.
Yeah.
And yet we keep it on because it's something we perceive protects us. And you took me through a gorgeous exercise before when I asked, so what do you do? How do you let go of the shell? And you basically, walk me through an exercise. The way to do it is to close your eyes and realize as you're pressing against it, what you do is you obliterate it, you fractalize it into a million particles because the shell no longer is necessary to protect you. And instead of even seeing that we can grow a new shell, maybe instead we grow wings and we can fly. So thank you, Biet from 7 years ago.
Biet from 7 years ago.
Does that resonate with you?
I mean, it's just like me to have a completely different take on it.
What's your take now?
I mean...
So maybe what we're talking about here is identity, right? Like identity, the things we clutch to. And, I guess it's threading from preference, but it's its own thing around shame and being ashamed. And letting go of that.
God, there's to me, there's two different things. Like,
Cool.
On the one hand, I feel like identity, if you can fall in love with identity, it's just this beautiful mask or kabuki that you're putting on, So, like, I care deeply about what I'm wearing. I care deeply about what footwear I have on. Clearly. I have a strong feeling that... we come from a world that is deeply leaning itself towards the idea of branding. What is branding? Yeah. Storytelling. It's about falling in love. Like, how can someone fall in love with me if I don't have a brand, right? Same as like even if you were falling in love with a person, an individual, they're falling in love with your brand. They're not going to be like, oh, yes, this is my person. If the shoe is wrong, it's got to be the right shoe, right? So that to me is like identity. And I don't identify with my identity. What does that mean? That means like I send my identity out, and like when Biet Simkin goes to the White House to read poetry and guide breathwork, am I doing that or is Biet doing that, right? And if Biet is my little outfit that I put on to roll around the planet in a nice car with a beautiful house, and this is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. Letting the days go by, watching the water pass me by. Like, this is...
Take us in, David Byrne.
Right.
Let's go.
David Byrne, I don't even know. Like, I don't know if he feels shame. But what I will say is that so that's identity to me. But, like, I don't identify with identity, but I care deeply about it. And I think it's important to be meticulous. I think I'm very enamored with people who are meticulous about their identity because it's a fucking favor you're doing us. How perfect is your beard? How gorgeous is that robe? How soft is that fabric? How great is that perfume? Because I'm walking out into the world to remind people that anything is possible. So I better be doing it artfully at every moment. And that to me is like, that's a altar that I go down to, that I go down at, right? But shame, now that's kind of like a dirty feeling that we get along the way. I don't know if everyone has it, but I think all of us do. And I've never met anyone who exceeds it, like is above it, right? Even if they're being total assholes, which by the way, is just covering up all their shame, right? But to me, it's like, I feel shame, all the time. Like it happens, like things will happen and I'm like, ooh, I'm so ashamed, And I just feel like it's the scariest feeling in the world. And if we can actually get naked and dance and be like, ooh, yeah, I'm a fucking loser. I fail at everything I try. It's fucking hot. I want to lick the pussy of all my failure right now. Like that, whatever then. Bring it. Bring me your shame. Shame me, And I found that because I have very specific exercises that I do around shame and that I teach my students to do. And I find that ever since I've done these exercises, I'm like, at the end of each practice, I get a memo. Like the universe is using shame as a memo system. I'm like, oh, you're supposed to write a new record. Oh, that's supposed to be this. Or you're supposed to go do this. There's an action. But shame hides the action from us. So most people, when they feel shame, they just run. So what you're supposed to do is actually go into shame, make love to shame, undress it, make it your lover, take all its power away, make it your bitch. And then it's like, by the way, here's the ingredients for your new record. Here's the ingredients for your new space on Abbot Kinney. You didn't make that without facing shame. You weren't like, let me just bypass my way to this space on Abbot Kinney. That's not what you did. You didn't bypass your way to getting a tongue put on your clothes. You faced it. You took your clothes off and you had fucking amazing sex with the worst parts of yourself, with the most scary parts of yourself. And you said yes to it. And I think when we say yes, things change.
What's one aspect of the exercises you put your constituents through? What does that look like?
It just looks like falling in love with the parts of yourself that you're like super icky about. Like you find something, if you ever find it, I find that it happens. Like something will trigger it and I'm like, ooh, that makes me feel really small. Like, or it makes me feel like I really won't ever accomplish my dreams. Or it makes me feel like I may as well just give up now and have a taco, I mean, I'm lucky, because like to me, giving up is like eating a taco these days. Yeah. There was a time when giving up was like 1 p.m. I was at a dive bar, Yeah. So it's different. Meeting up with like my drug dealer, that's different. But you know what? It doesn't matter because we can give up anywhere. That taco could be the end of my fucking life. I take it very seriously when a taco comes into the picture.
Taco is a metaphor for...
It's not a metaphor. It's a fucking taco. A taco will kill me. It's one taco too many. And then next thing I know.
So Victory and Maxine and I were watching last night the Quincy Jones documentary.
Oh, nice.
And man, you know what prolific looks like and sounds like, when you see somebody that is accomplished at the highest levels. And yet what came to me last night watching that documentary was the absolute audacity of experiential creation beyond the constructs of where they've come from. And it's just like something new and something new and something new. And there was only one, what came to me, and I said, there's only one other individual that I know that came to mind, and that's David Bowie. And it's ironic, David Bowie did so much, including like put himself in positions for self and shared ridicule in terms of being the Elephant Man on Broadway after he started a fashion line, and before that was or created a whole fashion movement around gender neutral, which just speaks to what I'm doing in the world with One Golden Thread. I mean, just touching that zeitgeist. But one of the things that I just love is you came to mind as well.
Oh, thank you.
You're very David Bowie, Quincy Jones-esque in terms of the way that you continue to lean into the three. And as somebody who is I call Victory like a ceremonialist songstress. I mean, you are a ceremonialist songstress in terms of the lyrics you do. The way you speak on big stages. You're a breath worker. You're a meditation guru. You're an author. You've got something coming out which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And I just want to honor. I want to honor that in you, and I'd love to hear you speak to that aspect of continuing to leave into your three, not just doing something that you know by rote, but something that's new and something that's fresh and something that dives into this notion around obliterating doubt and being uncertain in terms of how it's going to come out.
because that's a very, very potent, powerful lesson and blessing for us all to lean into the 3 and keep leaning in and just basically say, like, we get to do that.
Someone once said, I misquote people all the time. Like, I find quotes. I swear they were said by someone, but then they weren't. And Christoph says, I make up quotes and then I like attribute them to people that never said it.
Yeah.
So apparently I said that an artist is a person who metabolizes shame. And I feel like that's it. Like, you take shame, you take doubt, you take fear, you take feeling small, you take being less than or not good enough or whatever, and you fucking eat it, you metabolize it, and you spit out art. And like, yeah, I used to think that real artists didn't have that. I thought real artists were like lucky and they just felt free all the time and they were so confident. And I was speaking to a friend of mine recently and she said, you have social anxiety, she said. I swear to God, if we could write a book for all the things that people think I don't experience, I'm just like, because what they see is what I put out. Well, she put out album after album, book after book, after deck, after this, and she's Russell Brand's spiritual teacher, blah, blah, blah. Like, people just see the fucking what's on the water.
Yeah.
But I drown to get to this place, like every day. I choke on my own salt water and I come up reborn. Like, I'm not some free, like, it's not lucky. It hurts to be me, but I no longer see that pain as an obstacle. I see 9 o'clock as like, bring it, rub it on, bring me some coconut oil, like, let's get this bitch going. And maybe I don't feel that way at the first moment, like when that sting cuts me, when I'm at a party and someone's being an asshole to me, or when I email someone and they just don't even respond, which for me is like the great Achilles heel of my life for some reason. I'm like, what, you can't text me back? What, are you on fucking Mars? Like, just text me back to say you don't like me. Just text me back to say I'm not important enough for you. Say anything. Just say something. Stop being a pussy. That's what I'm thinking. But that's because I'm from the street, you know, so I'm like, fucking tell it like it is. I will respond to someone's text message and be like, I will not be on your podcast. No. Sorry. At least I said it, you know?
Thank you for saying yes.
Of course. You're my person. I love you.
I love you too. I just want to, this is important. I want to encourage anybody who's listening to realize that it's never too late.
Yeah.
If you have one breath left, whatever that thing would be, that if you were on your deathbed taking that last breath, you wouldn't be choking back like, oh, I didn't do that. And to me, what is the most powerful, potent thing is do it for yourself first. I did not have a moment of self-ridicule or fearing ridicule from another when I was designing for me what would be the world's perfect tea, because I was designing it for myself first with joy. Who the fuck are you to design a fashion designer at age 51? You never designed anything before in your life? Who the fuck are you at age 58 to launch a podcast? Who
the fuck are you? Yeah.
And there's something so, it's just so cool. And to be in this state of, I mean, my 92-year-old father, Mort, shout out to Mort, next episode, up after you, by the way.
Nice.
Instead of asking why, ask why not.
Yeah. And
it's such a beautiful way to live as a gift that lives for yourself first, and realize that by you lifting and gifting yourself, you are going to impress that on one other person.
Yeah.
And it's not about everyone. It's about everyone by one. So I want to go into the lyrics of the music of what you shared, because your music very much has been the early bedrock of One Golden Thread. When I went around the world and I tied golden threads on people's wrists, and we did in the Josh Robertson, shout out to you for putting this all together, did a beautiful anthology video.
I remember
it
that
was to one
of the songs off the Lunar.
It was Lunar, and it was all about there is no death.
There is no death. Oh yeah, there is no end, no death.
And then fast forward when my mother passed away in 2020, and I want to do something, and the business is dead in the water, and I want to do something to unpollute the polluting mask industry. And so what you're wearing around your neck, she's wearing the Versa wrap. Every item sold, donated one to a homeless soul. And this very much was about, like, you know, wearing a mask by removing our masks of ignorance. And I heard your song, I Would Shed This Mask for You, and I cried. And I still could cry thinking about the beauty of those lyrics. So I would love to invite you to share whatever you care to share in this moment in terms of your voice as a song ceremonialist high priestess.
Okay. I think that's a good one to share.
It's crazy. I already have chills.
I sent you that song before it was even released. Like, it was stuck in transit.
We actually,
it was the original, like, it was the demo. It wasn't the full version that came out.
Okay. My nipples are hard. All right. Like, this is a thing for me. Like, you all know this, or those that know this now know this, is that, yeah, when it comes from my crown to the tips of my toes of getting chills, it lands in my nipples. So giddy up. Here we go.
I will shed this mask for you and show you my face as it came, and everyone will know your name and be the one you want, the one you can't live without, and finally see the truth as it rises up in your parade and glides away all the rain. And I'll be the one you want, the one you can't live without. I will shed this mask for you and show you my face as it became, and you'll finally know my name and be the one you want, the one you can't live without. And I will shed this mask for you.
Oh, God. Oh my gosh. My mom received that song. That was really the song that I listened to dozens of times in the weeks following her passing.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that was a moment that it was really the soundtrack of me going deeper into my artistic expression with one golden thread and creating and leading in with audacity. And that's when the business actually really started to weave itself and be able to be here today. It started with that moment.
I'm glad we did that.
Mm.
And your mom helped too. They help so much when they're gone. They can do so much on the other side. I wouldn't be surprised if everything, all the abundance that came after that moment was from her, you know, connecting the dots for you at 12 o'clock. We spend some of our time in 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, because we have to. That's Earth. That's what we do. That's what we're here for. Mm. And I wouldn't change it, and I'm not trying to incarnate off this planet. But they're coming towards us at 12 o'clock. That's where we connect with them. That's where we remember that none of this is really real. That doesn't mean we get to pretend like the other shit's not happening. It's all happening.
Yes. What does your father say to you when you hear his voice?
He's just laughing his ass off. You know, he's helped me so much. My mom, too. I think my mom is way more. She's like a little business mogul. I think she's created my whole empire. He's more, my dad was like a real mystic. And I think, if anything, he's just laughing and experiencing the ambrosia of the planetary. He's doing some big work, too. Like big existential, energetic work for the planet, my dad.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, because, you know, what's the big work that you're up to? Because we are entering a year of tumult. However this goes, wherever we flow, there's going to be some shit shaken up.
Yeah.
So, I really believe that the leadership comes from the lyrics, the speakers, the inviters, the igniters, the brands. I really believe we can do this differently, because we're not going to get it from government. We're not going to get it from religion. I'm sorry.
No.
That's gonna bring us together in that version of a way. And let's talk about the big work that you're up to, and how do we ground this plane and light us up.
I mean, I'm just growing in terms of how many people I get to help.
Mm-hmm.
But in the midst of doing that, I'm working on a new book. You know, I work with private clients, albeit very sparingly. Very, very few people get to work with me. I have a course coming out, courses, so that more people can touch my wisdom without, you know, individually paying me to sit by my side for a sec. And I have a deck coming out, which is like a tarot deck.
Let's talk about the big deck.
The big deck. Pull out my big deck.
And what's this deck going to be called?
It's Breathwork guided by Biet. Yeah, and it's just a breathwork deck. There's nothing but breathwork. And then my signature breathwork is inside it as well.
Wow. And outside of one golden thread on that bikini, where can people buy this?
Oh yeah, come to Jeff's store. Pick up a copy there. I mean, anywhere where books are sold. And it's a gorgeous deck, so I hope it gets, you know, who knows, picked up by the MoMA or something. It's really a beautiful, beautiful work of art. I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing a few images earlier. It just looks, it's stunning, and each one is a piece of art. I love this notion around like the decks, that you can just take this little, you know, take these pieces of wisdom with you and share them in ways that's interactive, and that's potent.
Yeah, you can just pull it out like a deck. Whip it out.
You know,
what?
as we're coming to a close. Yeah, one of my favorite things I think I said about you is it's like it's the Buddha incarnate, you know, with the mouth of a truck driver, and and somebody who enjoys quoting great movies like our favorite movie,
Five Easy Pieces.
5 Easy Pieces.
Yeah, such a great film.
Do you want to describe the scene for those who haven't seen the movie?
I think you'd be better at it.
So, for those who haven't picked this book up, don't just sit there. Biet Simkin. Insights to get off your meditation, or AKA get off your ass, and into the real world. And you know what I love about your writing style, your speaking style, is you just make it accessible. You make it real. You make it enjoyable. And then there's golden nuggets. So I love the fact that everything that you've been blessing the world with in terms of your writing, your singing, your speaking, your breath working is now going to be in a tarot card to take with you. I love that. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it's nice to do 3D, no?
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a quote that I want to end this by sharing this quote that It was from Quincy Jones last night.
Oh, cool.
And as somebody who was just so prolific, I mean, arguably,
Yeah, so
he
painful,
gave
so
James
beautiful.
Brown a run for his money for the hardest working man in show business. And what he said was, I was always running to fill up the black hole in my soul. I thought to be still was to die. And I love the fact that you are so accomplished and you're continuing to lean into your 3, and yet it's all about also the stillness within, even as you're doing that. So how do we be in that warp speed of creation while being in that stillness in our heart?
I mean, don't fall asleep to your avatar. Send it out to do your work, dress it well. Admit that you want big, 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 hairy, scary success. Admit that you're willing to try to reach those gorgeous 3-dimensional aims. But at the end of the day, you need to remember those aren't the things that bring you bliss. Bliss is the union of those 2 things. It's the union of 12 o'clock with the rest of the wheel. It's the union of 12 o'clock with winning that Grammy, because if you're asleep at the wheel and you're just trying to fill the void and you're scared if you don't stop moving, you won't get the thing. And you're just harried. You're going to miss it anyway. Yeah. And I describe it in that book, the one you just held up, which can be called Don't Just Sit There, or could be called Don't Just Sit There, right? So it's like it could be seen either way. But I describe it as a cross, in the first chapter, saying that the horizontal line is like where we accomplish things and lose our virginities and win the awards and millions and billions of dollars, however much is in our little Akashic plan. And then the vertical line is where we connect with source. And people mistake. They think that they can go on the horizontal line and get things from life. And that's the biggest mistake you can make. Life, the horizontal plane, isn't a place for receiving. It's only a place for giving. Wow. So it's like you want to go stick your dick in. Go stick your dick in on that horizontal plane. Rub your pussy on, whatever, as long as we're getting like equality here, right? In my spiritual world, I have a dick. I want to stick my dick in, right? But like I'm saying, you get from the vertical line. You can never get from anywhere, but you can't get from victory.
Yeah.
You know that. You could just give to her, but where do you get it? You got to know where to fucking go. You need a source.
Yeah.
And so people going around trying to get, and I don't know how Quincy, if he was trying to get from the world, but at the end of the day, I'm sure he had to stop and realize, strangely, I'm not getting from the world, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like input versus output.
Yeah. That would be creating positive boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Creating positive boundaries around when everyone wants that piece of you. Before we close, one thing that you brought up that was so stunning was this relationship. You think about mind, body, spirit, soul, and you wrote something that was really quite. It's almost shocking. In a way that it stops, it forces you to stop and pause and reflect and consider. And you wrote that our soul is starving, and there's this notion around, are we feeding the mind or the body or the soul and what have you? And I loved it what you wrote after that. So maybe you could speak to this notion of our soul is starving, and so how do we get to harmonize our mind, body, spirit, soul?
I mean, for me, I can only speak for myself. Like, I need to slow down quite a bit and stop time if I'm going to feed the soul, because the soul doesn't exist inside of time. So if I'm going to like be rushing somewhere, or if I'm going to be endlessly in 6 o'clock, I'm sure you and I both know a lot of people who are real trapped in that 6 o'clock zone. They're just business monsters, business robots. And it's like always trying to make that business connect. Always, even if they're like on vacation, it's like, now's the time. It's just like so extreme. It's like, just take a chill, So I think that it really is about learning to stop time, taking these techniques, these practices, like get my breathwork deck, whatever, just take a fucking breath. Every good thing that's ever come from my life has come from relaxing, has from really leaning back. And if you think about creation, it really is just resting, because I don't really believe I wrote those records. Like, who are we really talking about, right? Because if I wrote those records, then I could write a record any day. But what, for any artist out there, you could wake up on a Tuesday and write your ass off, and it's all garbage. You just throw it away like my little 5-year-old. It's horrible. This is garbage. And she throws it in the trash. She knows. Yeah. It's only when God makes something through us that it matters. So
any great thing you've ever achieved, you achieve from relaxing.
Relaxing.
That might be the golden mic drop. So at the end of the episode,
yeah,
my co-spirator gets to make the sound of the golden mic drop.
Okay. Any sound?
What is the sound?
A golden mic drop. I don't know.
All right, the last thing is put your hand over your heart, your left hand with the golden thread.
Yeah.
So, what does it mean to you to live life golden?
Just trying to remember what it feels like to fall in love, and moving my body and making my actions akin to who I am in those first few weeks on a daily basis.
A self-love tip you've discovered to tap back to that when we forget.
Touch your pussy and dance when you feel ashamed, and talk about how great it is that you get to be whole.
Thank you for inviting me to touch my pussy. The golden thread that connects us all is...
everything.
Biet, my soul sister.
Yes.
Thank you for being on Drops of Gold.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Drops of Gold. We trust you found listening as delightful as we found creating. Now let me tell you, it takes a village to nourish a dream. Big shout outs to One Golden Thread for powering the pod, to co-producers Mark Shapiro, Josh Robertson, and Victory for bringing it all to life, Kat Benzova for her stunning guest portraits, and special thanks to artist Taib for featuring his electrifying new track, Departures. And infinite love to you for your curiosity and commitment to living in your highest vibrational truth. Aho! Here we grow. We are all designed to be reminded we are already golden inside. I'm Jeff Scult, wishing you a radically yes fuck yes day. Ashe.
TV.